Peggle. Hello and welcome to another episode of Ferris 64 with me, your host, Yemmy the Ferret. Ferris 64 is, of course, the one-stop shop for video game news, occurrences, first impressions, and so much more. We got a good amount of things to talk about today, including the Developer Direct. Sometimes I accidentally call it the Devolver Direct because, it's kind of similar, but the Developer Direct for Xbox and Microsoft. We also have a couple things I've played and finished this past week, and we got some news articles to get to. So let's dive into the first part of this episode, which will be what was announced at that game showcase. Okay, so the Developer Direct from Xbox was pretty good, as it usually is. I didn't really have any complaints about it, per se. The only complaint that I had was that, the day before they announced that they were doing this, they, laid off a bunch of people. So it was like, hey, let's celebrate our developers. And also, let's lay off a bunch of them, too. So that's usually, that's, the thing that kind of was bugging me throughout this entire thing. It's like, we're putting a highlight on our developers and partners, and wow, look at how awesome our developers are, and look what they're working on, and isn't this great? And then you remember, 100 people lost their job, a couple weeks ago. So it's a bit of, give and take here. I'm going to try and be as positive as I can, though, because it's not really obviously it's not really about that. It's not about the layoffs that happened. But it is just kind of weird that, they would lay off all those people and then be like, and here we are celebrating our developers this week. So, whatever. Anyway, it started off with the special announcement, the special partner, a very famous Japanese IP that will be coming to Game Pass day one when its new game, Ninja Gaiden 4, comes out in fall 2025. So if you don't know what Ninja Gaiden is, it's pretty much it started out as a 2D pixel art game back in the NES and SNES days, and then it turned into a third person action hack and slash kind of game. And the games are known for being a bit hardcore. They're a bit difficult, and there's also a lot of things from this game or the Ninja Gaiden series that transferred over to the Souls series, inspired things with the Souls games. So checkpoints that are that heal you, intense gameplay, I guess, healing items that don't replenish until you're at one of those little statue things. So there's a couple things mixed in there. But I wouldn't dissuade anyone from trying out the games, because even though they do become very difficult, it does kind of ease you into it, kind of get you accustomed to everything going on, while still making it a bit challenging, of course. But the main thing is that I think they're just kind of fun hack and slash kind of games. The one that I've been playing, which is the only one that I've really played a lot since a demo that I played back in the day, is that game that shadow dropped on the Xbox Game Pass the same day as Developer Direct, which was Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which is a complete remaster of the second game, which is Ninja Gaiden Black. So that has been a really good time so far. But yeah, they announced that Ninja Gaiden 4 is coming in fall of 2025. It follows a different character for most of it, but then Ryu comes back, who is the main character of the other Ninja Gaiden games. They show him later on, so I'm guessing it's going to be kind of a dual protagonist type story where you play as one or the other. Maybe they'll have different movesets to learn and stuff like that. But it's essentially this obviously takes place after the events of Ninja Gaiden 3, which I don't really know much about, but apparently Ryu beat the big bad guy from that game, and its corpse is kind of laying over this futuristic Tokyo, and because of that, there's an endless rain that happens, so it kind of becomes, sci-fi Neo Tokyo kind of thing. Maybe kind of like kind of cyberpunky, I guess. But anyway, essentially, you're trying to fight down ninja warriors, etc., etc. You kind of get the gist of it, right? It's essentially take down the big bad guy and move on, right? And save the world, right? But I mean, the trailer looks pretty good. It's obviously running on the same engine that they rebuilt Ninja Gaiden Black with, so it doesn't look bad at all. The one thing that is very impressive about Ninja Gaiden Black, which I'll probably talk about later, is the dismemberment system. Like legs, arms, heads, everything can get chopped off. Bodies get chopped in half. Pretty cool. So I'm sure that there's a lot of people excited about this because the Ninja Gaiden series was very popular. I believe the third game came out like 10 or so years ago at this point. Like it's been quite a while, and I'm sure that people are itching for more Ninja Gaiden content. I do know that there's also that Ninja Gaiden 2D game that's coming out eventually. I'm not sure when that is. That was not shown off here, but I remember seeing that at I think it was the Game Awards pre-show or something like that. So, yeah, looks good. This looks good, and I'm enjoying Ninja Gaiden Black 2. Or Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, whatever it's called. Anyway, having fun with those two games. Let's move on to Doom: The Dark Ages. So we knew that this was coming because Bethesda ID Software was there, and their little logo was the Doom guy. So essentially, what this game is it's Doom again, but instead of being in the future on like Mars, you are traveling around in like a medieval setting, and you're the Doom guy in medieval setting. Now, I don't think that the Doom guy goes back in time. I think it's a different Doom guy in general. But essentially, the main thing about this game is the new Saw shield. Kind of like how Doom from 2016 had the little like boop boop grenade launcher on the side, and Doom Eternal also had its own little gimmick thing going on as well with the sword. Now you have the shield and possibly a ball and chain. There's also a freaking dragon that you can ride as well and actually use for battle. And towards the end, the Doom guy suits up into a giant kaiju-esque, Pacific Rim-esque mech fighting, mech suit, and fights a giant demon. That was like the final few seconds of the trailer. And this looks really good. Obviously, it's not the same music composer as the other games, but this still sounds good. There's a lot to like about what we saw from this small trailer, and of course, the developers have always been very passionate about these games. And I think they're doing great work here. And obviously, it has a lot of what you know from the other Doom like reboot games, I guess you could call them. But it's just kind of putting a medieval twist on them. So instead of like an assault rifle, you have a gun that like grinds down skulls and shoots bullets, like bone bullets, I guess you could say. Instead of the grenade launcher, you have something else. You have like a shield throw that does about the same amount of damage, right? So, yeah, very interested in this. Obviously, this is coming to Xbox Game Pass, of course, and it's coming May 15th, 2025. So it's not too far out. Xbox has a very tight window for their game releases this year. As I will get to next, there's 2 games coming out in April, and then this one's coming out in May. I feel like they needed to stretch this stuff out a bit more, unless they have more games that they're going to announce later. It's hard to say, but this is looking really good, and I'm excited to see what happens with the series, because Doom 2016, loved that game. Definitely a top 5 the year that it came out. The multiplayer mode was a bit tacked on, so I wasn't really too crazy about that. Doom Eternal, kind of the same thing, where it's like, yeah, it was a great game. Didn't make my top 10 list, but it was a great game. But the multiplayer mode was just kind of like, it felt just kind of like, okay, whatever. This one is ditching the multiplayer mode for a different thing, which is cool. And also, there's lots of customizable options for the game as well. Essentially, you can use sliders to determine how much health you have, how much health enemies have. It's just a whole bunch of accessibility options there too, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, they decided to ditch the multiplayer to work more on the campaign, make it even better of an experience, which I'm not going to complain about that, seeing as the Doom multiplayer was kind of decent at best at times. Also, South of Midnight had a developer direct trailer, and this was they were pretty much talking about the story of the game, and they were showing off the various story elements in it. So essentially, you start off as Hazel, who is preparing with her mother to leave their trailer, and because there's a hurricane, it's a big hurricane, and what happens? They have a fight. Hazel runs out, and the trailer gets swept away by the rushing water from the hurricane. So after that, she starts to see various special things, like these various creatures and demons, I guess you could call them, something like that. With this game being set in like Louisiana, the Bayou, it's actually a very unique setting for games. I mean, we really don't see that too often. And I mean, it's a hack and slash game at its heart, of course. The enemies are these big shadowy creatures, and you hack and slash them. But the story seems to also be very interesting as well, as you are kind of going into like that voodoo kind of like lore or culture, or whatever you want to call it, which is pretty cool. Very, very cool indeed. Also, I think the art style of the game is very nice. It has like it has one of those like lower frame rates on the characters, so like they're a bit more jittery, which is a very interesting stylistic choice for the game, but one that I do think fits the art style and the tone that they're going for. So very cool there. This is coming out April 8th, 2025. So this is actually this is the first one from Xbox coming out this year. So we'll see how that does. Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty cool action adventure game. Even though even though I'm a bit tired of hack and slash third person, maybe not hack and slash, but third person adventure games. We'll see how this one is. I'll definitely check it out. It definitely has piqued my interest. You can, of course, you can get this game on Xbox Game Pass, or there is a 5-day early access, which will give you a digital art book, a digital comic book, an original soundtrack, a director's commentary, and a music video. So there you go. This is all digital. So there does not seem to be a physical version of this game releasing. I mean, it's possible that there will be a physical edition for PlayStation and Xbox release at a later date. But as of right now, I don't think there's a physical edition. Everything's just digital right now, which seems to be the way that the developers are going at this point, or the publishers are going at this point. I saw a video earlier today that was saying that sales for physical games was down by like 85%, and of course it makes sense because a lot of kids nowadays, or young adults, they don't see the need for physical stuff, right? They just kind of you got Netflix, and you got your TVs and your YouTube, and you got Twitch and stuff. It's all digital, so why not make the games digital too? I get it. I get why people they don't like the hassle of a physical console. They don't like the hassle of switching out discs. They don't like the hassle of storing those discs. Me personally, I love physical items, and I'll be a physical buyer to the end of my life probably, or at least until the end of physical life. And that's it's unfortunate that that's the way that it's going, but I'm not going to be one of those people who's angry about it, because I do understand it's definitely obviously it's things change, but the only thing that I'm always concerned about is the fact that, like, okay, you can get this game digital, you can buy it on Steam, you can buy it on whatever, they can revoke that access anytime they want on most platforms besides from like GOG, or if you have a non-DRM version of the Steam game. So I mean, your account gets banned. Guess what? All your purchases gone. All your games that you purchased gone. Hundreds of dollars down the drain. So that's why I've always loved having physical games. Not just because I'm a collector and I like these tiny, I like the look of them on the shelf, but also because, hey, anything can happen. Hacks can happen. I mean, I had my PlayStation 3 account hacked back in the day, and they bought a bunch of FIFA coins, and I never got my account back. I would have been a different person if I was still using that old account. My Twitch name probably would have been different. But instead, here we are with Yemmy the Ferret. And it all worked out in the end, of course, but I never got that account back. It was permabanned because I had to go to my bank and I had to reverse the charges, and PlayStation didn't like that, and it was a whole fiasco. And I talked to a representative from PlayStation. And they were like, "Well, you need to let the purchase go through before we can reverse it." And I was like, "Yeah, that's not happening." I mean, at that time, I was living off of like $100 in my savings account. I just moved out. I wasn't really good at saving money yet, and I couldn't do it. But like I said, in the past, here's the future, which apparently is digital only. Speaking of digital only, the next game they showed off, and the final game they showed off, was Expedition 33. Okay, we saw this game a little while ago. This is the one where it's like based in like France, and there is some sort of like evil demonic painter that paints a number on a slab, and that number is like the age of people who are going to disappear. So 33 gets put onto the board, and all the people who are age 33 disappear, and she's like counting down, right? So or maybe it's random. Once a year, the painter paints on her monolith a cursed number. So maybe it's a bit random, but I mean, it's an interesting concept. I don't know if I'm fully sold on this one yet, but if you want to be sold on it, you might want to check out the trailer because it's got a very interesting combat style. Apparently, it's combining JRPG-styled turn-based strategy with also real-time action sequences. So sometimes you'll be playing a turn-based battle, and then other times you'll be able to do a real-time action battle, which is kind of weird. You can also craft unique builds for your expeditionist that fit your playstyle, gear, stats, skills, and character synergies. The active dimension combat will be dodge, parry, and counter in real time. You can chain combos by mastering attack rhythms and target enemy weak points with the free aim system. Yeah, I mean, it sounds very interesting. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on this one yet. I mean, it looks beautiful, right? It's definitely inspired by like Final Fantasies or whatever, while also having its own thing going on. Story in the background, obviously these people want to try and take down the painter before she can paint another number on the monolith. So it's like, okay, here we go. Gotta save the world. I think this game's unique combat style will really draw people in. I mean, it looks really good too. Like the graphics look really good as well. It definitely has a unique, well, maybe not unique, but has a great graphic style to it. It's very colorful, very lively. Which obviously this world has been painted by this great painter, but there's also destruction and death in there as well. So there's areas that are like burnt out. Yeah, if you want to check this out, it looks like it'll be pretty good. But once again, I'm just not like completely sold on it. Maybe it's just because I'm not a JRPG fan, and then this turn-based system it's a bit weird to like understand because it's like, well, it's turn-based, but it's also not turn-based. I know we've had systems like that before in the past that have been similar. But it's just one of those things where it's like I need to see maybe more of it in action because you only get little like flashes of gameplay while developers are talking or when they're doing like the big release trailer, right? But yeah, this one comes out on April 24th, so only a couple weeks after Song of South of Midnight. So it's a bit of a crunch schedule for Xbox, and I don't know why they did this. They did this to themselves. I mean, obviously these are their developers and their studios. They can tell them when to publish games. They can give them extra time. They can, whatever. I feel like these two games they're brand new IPs, right? South of Midnight, Expedition 33, they're brand new IPs. You should give them their breathing room, right? Have South of Midnight release at the beginning of April, and then have Expedition 33 release like maybe beginning or mid of the next month, May. That's the only thing that I'm worried about is people are going to be playing South of Midnight, and they're going to forget about Expedition 33, or because these two games are probably going to be pretty big. I'm probably South of Midnight's going to be shorter than this JRPG experience with Expedition 33. But I just feel like if someone's more interested in the JRPG and they go, well, the other games are releasing only a couple weeks before this one, I might as well just wait it out and play this one so I can put my full time into it. One of the games or both of them could suffer because they're just too close. They're just too close together. And these are two very different games too. They are very different genres. We have a hack and slash third-person action game, and we have a JRPG turn-based slash action strategy game, or whatever you want to call it. So I feel like they needed to split these games up a bit more because they are so different and they're coming out so soon together. I feel like it really could have used a bit of a more of a break. Unless they think that most people are going to finish South of Midnight within those 2 weeks of its first release, that's possible. Maybe they figure like, oh, it's a 20-hour game. People should get that done in 2 weeks, and then we can release this Expedition 33 game, which will be a 50-hour experience or however long it is. So, yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? I think that both these games look good. I'm more interested in South of Midnight, of course. But we'll see what happens. And obviously, the big story is Doom: The Dark Ages, obviously, from this whole thing, with Ninja Gaiden 4 being right there along with it, with the shadow drop of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. So all in all, I think this was a great developer direct. It definitely deserves some high praises. Lots of cool stuff shown off here. Very enjoyable to watch for the most part. Very enjoyable to watch. And I really don't have anything else to say other than if you want to check it out, all the videos are, of course, on Xbox's YouTube channel. And you can check out those games and the trailers there. Or if you want to watch the whole thing, go ahead and watch the whole thing. And I'm going to give this one an A rank. I think it was very good. Not the best showcase I've ever seen because it's only like 4 games, right? But still a very good time. And most of the developer directs are. So there you go. I'm surprised that Avowed didn't show up here. Maybe it's because they've already confirmed the release date, but whatever. All right, let's go ahead and move on to what have I been playing this past week. All right, the first thing I want to talk about is Dynasty Warriors Origins. I've been accidentally calling this game Dragon Age Origins for some reason. I don't know why. Probably because there is a Dragon Age Origins game, and I don't know, it's D and W. But Dynasty Warriors Origins, I finished this game last week. Well, I guess kind of at the beginning of last week. And I was having a lot of fun with it. I genuinely was. I think this is a great game. This is the first Dynasty Warriors that I've gone through completely and finished. And I was having a blast during the whole thing, or at least most of it. There is a bit of fatigue that sets in because it is, it's a lot of the same thing over and over again, obviously, with, mauling through thousands of enemies at times and taking over bases and whatnot. But the game did do a good job of keeping the levels feeling fresh. Like, even though you're still, just plowing your way through enemies and using special moves and various weapons, it did a good job of changing up the not the story structure, the level structure, so that it kept things fresh. It wasn't just the same thing over and over again, where it's like, okay, you have these lanes and you have these bases you need to take over, and then you beat the big bad, the big general at the end of it all. Even though those concepts are still in the game when you're playing it, of course, the way that you get there changes drastically. There's various new objectives to do as well throughout the game as well. So I thought they did a good job of switching things up as the game moved on and progressed. Also, the story has a branching narrative. There are 3 different factions, and you can choose between one of the 3 to have a completely different story experience. I don't know if the levels change too much, like maybe you just get the opposite side of a level or whatever. I'm not sure. But you do get a couple of different levels mixed in there if you choose one of the other 3 factions. So that's pretty cool too, which makes it have a little bit of replay value there as well. You can go back to the chapter where you're deciding which faction you want to help, and you can change and go to a different faction if you so desire. I felt like that was a great idea for the game. They did a good job with that, allowing you to kind of pick which side you want to be on. They did. I mean, obviously, it's a bit biased as to which side they kind of want you to go with, because there's one faction that you kind of start off fighting with, and the characters are very charismatic and very friendly, so they kind of push you towards that one. But obviously, if you want to go with the other factions, you can. There doesn't seem to be an issue with that either. And I mean, even though story wasn't like super gripping, like I wasn't like on the edge of my seat, it was serviceable. I think that the story was fine. That branching narratives does help it a lot, because it's an interesting concept, and obviously you get different levels if you go with a different faction. Some of them do link up together, but other ones are very different. So that's pretty cool. That they decide to do that, and that does elongate the playtime of the game as well. There are little like side things you can do too. Like there's random encounters that pop up where you can just kind of fight a bandit group, and then there's also these ones that pop up that are like more of like an actual strategy battle that you would normally do in the campaign, but just a little bit shorter. And they also give you extra guards into your squadron, which is great because the guards really do help a lot to sometimes get you out of some hot messes. So essentially, like halfway through the game, you get given your own squadron of guards to command, and they can help you with they have like an arrow attack, they have some special moves they can get. And in order to get more guards in your squad and get more moves for them, you have to do these missions that pop up that they're kind of like they're more side mission than the random encounters, so they're kind of like side missions. They follow the same structure as a regular story mission, except they're a bit more slimmed down, and you can kind of fight any faction in the game. It's kind of like, it's kind of like a doesn't matter to the main, it doesn't pertain to the main plot type thing. You just kind of like fight whatever faction is there, right? So the main thing for that is getting the new moves for your guards and getting the new, like, more guards to help you out. Even though they don't do a lot when they're just on their own, but they can help you. Just like they can destroy archer towers, they can destroy catapults and stuff like that while you're doing other things. So and you can also send them. You can tell them to go to like a base and capture the base too, which is also pretty cool. It kind of helps. It helps with that strategy aspect of the game where it's like, well, I need to go here and help this general because they're almost about to die. You guys go to this base and give us more valor or whatever for the battle. But if you don't know what Dynasty Warriors is, I probably should have started off with that. It's a very much a hack and slash adventure game, strategy game as well, where you take the role as a single general or in this case an individual who is very strong, and you plow your way through enemies and take out their commanders and their generals. So the first level, I guess the basics of it is, you have groups of regular enemies, you take them out, and they disperse. And if there's a general, you can fight a bunch of the enemies, but you need to take out that general or commanding officer, and then they'll disperse. And then usually at the end is the main big guy, and the main big guy general can rally his forces and make a large army force, which is really cool. I mean, there's thousands of enemies on the screen. Like, this obviously couldn't have been done in the PS2 era. This game couldn't have been done in maybe even in the PS3 era, honestly. It definitely is one of those games that is made for this generation, or at least this, the last two generations here, where, thousands of enemies on the screen, tons of generals to fight in this final battle. And they also have like special abilities, like they can rally their troops and they can give them special abilities like, archers will keep firing at you until you kill this many archers, or you need to kill this one side general who is giving out orders, and that'll help defeat them. It'll give you more morale if you defeat the generals around there. And then once you beat the main big bad general, then the level ends and the entire army disbands. But it's very bombastic. Like it's very it's crazy at times just how many enemies are on the screen. Like there were times where I was cutting through like 3,000 to 5,000 enemies in one level. And sure, maybe it was because I started just kind of hacking and slashing away at just kind of killing enemies willy-nilly without really thinking about the objective. But there are times where like you're just going through a level and it's like, oh, I am at the 1,000 enemy mark, and I feel like I just started, which is pretty cool indeed. And you have multiple weapons to choose from, which can keep things feeling nice and special. So instead of like switching out characters, like even though you can for like a little while switch out your character to your partner character if you have one with you, um, mostly you're just using the same character throughout the whole thing. And you can give them different weapons. So there's like a regular general sword, there's a staff, there's a spear, there's a oh, what the heck was it? What's it called? They have some weird names. So there's like a scimitar type weapon as well. There's like a pole staff. There's a lot of different weapons to choose from, and they all are pretty cool. The gauntlets are like this melee fighting style where you have like brass knuckles on essentially, and that's more of like a defensive kind of battling type. So you block enemies' attacks, parry them, and then hit them. The sword is very much like a middle of the road, like this is your basic move set kind of thing. Obviously, the farther you get in the game, the more intricate weapons you get, the ones that are a little bit more difficult to learn the move set for. But the one that I ended up using a lot was the pole spear. I forget what exactly it was called, but the more enemies you hit and the more combos you do, the more damage it got. So I was able to get through the game a little bit quicker, I guess, by charging that thing up and taking out the enemies fairly quickly. Obviously, the boss fights, you can't really do that with the boss fights, but when you're fighting like the generals and stuff like that, it can really help. There was another one that was more defensive. It was kind of like it didn't really have like a sharp edge, it had like a blunt end on it. I forget what that one was called. That one was a weird one because it was very defensive, but it also had a lot of attack power when you did like counterattacks. So that was kind of cool. And then the other one that I used a lot was like two like axes. You carried them like they were spears with axe tips on them. That one I used a lot too because there was this move where you could just like, if you did L1 and triangle, you would do this move where you were slashing like this with both of them. And if you tapped triangle repeatedly, it would keep doing it for a while. You could do it for a while. So there was a couple of times where I kind of like cheesed the boss because I kind of just got stuck in that loop of doing that. And the main thing about defeating generals and bosses and stuff like that is you need to break their stance in order to really do real damage to them. You break their stance and then you do like a big attack by pressing triangle and sometimes it doesn't kill them, so you just kind of do a big attack and they lose a bunch of health, or if you do end up killing them, you do like a finishing move on them, which is very cool. I really like that system a lot. It really brings a lot of flavor to the game in general. And yeah, that's the other thing too. Like the combat is pretty slick because not only is there defensive options with like guardian and stuff like that on every weapon, but you can also parry with every weapon too, which really adds a lot to the game. Like parrying in any game can be satisfying, but this one it was more satisfying than I was expecting because I was like, oh, what are we gonna do? Like, parry a move here and there. When you parry an enemy, it's very satisfying because you parry and then you go do a huge attack on them that takes down their health. So very, very cool there as well. Very enjoyable there as well. Also, like sometimes the generals can challenge you to a duel. And so what you do is like all the guards and stuff circle around you and you duel them. It's almost like there's like a health bar in the middle and it goes. The more hits you get on the other character, the more the blue bar fills up, and if the enemy gets hit on you, the red bar fills up, and if the red bar fills up all the way, I believe it's an insta kill. I think an instant game over. If you get the blue bar filled up all the way, you can actually instant kill them or knock them out. That's the thing about this game. It's not really killing. You kind of like knock out the enemy generals because they come back multiple times, which is a bit annoying for the story because it's like, well, you just fought this big general guy, and he's down on one knee, and you're swiping away at him, and you're doing like all these crazy combos on them, and then they fade away, and it's like, oh, General Chow Chow has run away, and it's like, really, he ran away again? So that's one of the things you kind of gotta get over. That when you defeat an enemy in the game, it doesn't mean that they're dead. It just kind of means like, okay, they're knocked out of the fight, they ran away. If a character does die in a game, it's going to be 100% in a cutscene. There is no enemy deaths outside of a cutscene. So just if you're thinking of going into the game, just kind of remember that's kind of like the main gist of like that kind of thing. The characters dying and whatnot. But yeah, I mean the levels they definitely upped the ante as it went on. I don't want to give anything away because most of the levels that I thought were extra really, really good were towards the end of the game. Even though there were good levels sprinkled throughout, that's not what I'm saying. Like it's not like it was all bad until the end, but the ending like couple levels were just like so good. There was one level where you let the enemy attack you with their ships, and you have to kind of hold them off for a little while until the winds change, and then you order the fire arrows to fire when the winds change, so that the fire goes the towards them. And then you have a big offensive after you do that. So very cool level design. There was other ones too. Like one was just like defending your castle, like in the middle of a field, and you had to destroy like the enemy catapults and ballistas and stuff like that in order to stop them from getting into the castle walls and taking down your main general. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff in there. A lot of cool stuff indeed. I really was enjoying my time with it. I know I talked about it last week, but I don't think I did a good enough job of explaining like the ins and outs of the combat and stuff like that, because I think I forgot to mention a lot of things. But also too, I was only like a couple hours into the game, and this is like a 20 to 25 hour game at least. Obviously they kind of keep adding things into the game almost consistently up until the end. There's new mechanics and stuff being introduced into the game, so that's also another reason why it definitely feels like they're keeping it fresh. It felt fresh throughout the whole thing, even though it was a lot of the same old, same like fight, 1,000 enemies and their general and win. You could definitely change things up to stop the game from feeling monotonous. But yeah, I mean, the only real criticism I have for the game is that the story is just kind of fine for most of it. I was hoping for maybe a couple more interesting things to happen in the story. Obviously, with the fact that you can choose a couple different factions towards the end is nice. That does help with the story. But there were some times where I just felt I was kind of like bored. The cutscene was going on for too long, or the dialogue was going on for too long. I just started mashing the X button. I was like, look, man, I appreciate that you're trying to do something here. It's just not that interesting. But there were times where the story did pick up, but that was my main thing, where it's like, yeah, the story was just kind of like, it was there, but it was like not like amazing. Like you kind of see where it's going at most of the time. And sometimes like story beats kind of repeated. Like you beat the initial like big bad guy for chapter 1, and you move into chapter 2, and the guy who definitely seemed evil, who was helping you, well, what do you know? He was evil, so you go up against him. And it's like, it just kind of was like a repeating cycle there for like a chapter or two, which I thought was kind of like, they could have done a better job at maybe having this not be as similar as the first chapter. But yeah, it was all fine in the end. Like I didn't care that much, which is why I didn't really put too much into that. But in the end, I really had a good time with it. I liked the combat. I liked the mechanics. I liked the level design for the most part. The story was fine. I didn't really have any troubles with the game at all. Like sometimes maybe there's like a difficulty spike or whatever, but no, they do a good job of giving you random side missions and encounters to do, or regular side missions to do, to keep you leveling up, to keep you up to speed with what the game is throwing at you. So that's also a very nice thing. They did a good job with the leveling up system as well. So in the end, I am going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed the game. I'll probably go through it again to choose one of the other factions, or at least start midway through the game to choose a different faction to see how it goes. Yeah, I thought that they did a great job with this one, and it did make me interested in checking out the other Dynasty Warriors games. Even though some of the ones that I've been recommended are pretty expensive. There was this Gundam one that looks really cool. Don't get me wrong, like it looks really cool. I think it's like $60 minimum most places for a good copy of the game. So it's a bit pricey to get into the better games in the series, and they're probably that expensive because they are the good ones. There's a lot of Dynasty Warrior games. I think there's like 13 or 14 like in the base series. And then you have like the spin-offs, like the Dynasty Warriors Samurai, the Dynasty Warrior Ninja. Then there's also the Hyrule Warriors and Age of Calamity, 2 spin-offs there. And I think there's other spin-offs for other series as well that I'm not remembering right now what they exactly are. But yeah, and if you look at those games too, like Dynasty Warriors for the Switch, I'm sorry, Hyrule Warriors for the Switch, it's still like $50. Same thing with the Age of Calamity. It's like even more for some reason. It's like 70 right now. I have them on my wish list on eBay, but we'll see if I track down a good price for either of those games. Because I mean, I like the enemies from Legend of Zelda games. Like, I think they'd be great for something like this, where it's like a horde of enemies. You're fighting a bunch of those bogoblins or whatever they're called. Might be kind of cool. I know there were some criticisms for those Hyrule Warriors games when they came out. I don't really remember what they were, but I am interested in playing some more Dynasty Warrior games if I can get my hands on them. The one that I'm most interested in playing is whatever that one was at the beginning of the Xbox 360 lifespan that was at that Kmart kiosk that I originally played Dynasty Warriors at. That is the one that I'm like kind of like, what was that game? Like, which one was that? And I'm still not completely I'm still not sure which one it was because I don't remember exactly when I played it, but I do know that it was a white Xbox console at a Kmart. It had Peter Jackson's King Kong, a Dynasty Warriors game, and I think a sports game as well on there. Just to kind of just a demo to show off the capabilities of the Xbox 360. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's in my memory. I can see it right now in my memory. I was riding a horse and I was fighting enemies and I moved to another base and I had to go. But that like little like 2 minutes of gameplay really stuck with me apparently when I was a kid. So whatever. All right. I also played and finished Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, which released I think it was like 2 weeks ago at this point. But I was very focused on getting Dynasty Warriors done. I wanted to get this done before the new Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii game came out, because I'm very excited for that, which I'll talk about later. But Donkey Kong Country Returns was kind of like in the background of like, if I finish Dynasty Warriors quick enough, I'll play this game to completion to kind of just bide my time before something else comes out. And it did just that. It's still a fun playthrough. Like, you can lobby as many criticisms as you want against like this HD remaster of the game coming from Nintendo. In the end, the base game is still very fun. Donkey Kong Country Returns is still a great game. It's not as good as Tropical Freeze, but it's still a very, very good experience. And removing the motion controls is nice. You don't have to shake your Wii remote anymore to roll across the ground. That is nice. But it does take away a bit of the charm not to have the Wii remote with you, and having to shake it and wiggle it and stuff like that. It does take away a bit of that charm, I guess. But for the most part, it was just, it was a good time. And that's, what more could you want from a game that is as old as Donkey Kong Country Returns? It has been remade a couple times. It had the 3DS version, and I think it also had a special Wii U edition of the game as well, if I'm not mistaken. But now we got it on Switch. And, one of the things, like the main things is like, it's so unfortunate that we never got a mainline Donkey Kong Country Returns or Donkey Kong Country game on the Switch. Like every other series got their love except for Star Fox. And even F-Zero had its time in the spotlight with F-Zero 99. I feel like Donkey Kong Country could have just used like a new entry on the Switch. it was rumored for so long, and obviously what they were working on was probably this Donkey Kong Country Returns remaster HD remake. And it's unfortunate because even though Tropical Freeze and Returns are great games, and I like that they brought them over to the Switch for modern consoles and modern gamers, I feel like they're using this release of Donkey Kong Country Returns to judge whether a Donkey Kong Country game would be viable. And this is not going to sell well. Just like Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, it's just not viable to judge what the audience wants from these games because they are very basic HD remasters of both those games. And Donkey Kong Country Returns, it really does the bare minimum to do anything to justify the price tag. Like, do they update the graphics? Yep, there's an update to the graphics for sure. There's some nice new water effects and new lighting in there at times and whatever. And yes, they did add the Tropical Freeze 3 heart system. If you want to, you can play that version or the original version of the game. But other than that, it's really just the same game again, which is why I just rated it the same as the last time I played Donkey Kong Country Returns, which is a 4 out of 5. I'm kind of taking out the price tag and the minimum things that they did to bring it back to us because the base game is still really good. Like, it's still a very, very fun adventure for Donkey Kong. And it's got good boss fights in there. It's got good level design. It's got plenty of things to find, collectibles to find, which are fun to hunt. Which is why it's still a 4 out of 5. But you have to mention that this is a $60 game that they're putting out there for a 10-year-old game that's already gotten a couple of re-releases in the past. And not to mention that they really didn't do anything with it to give it that $60 price tag. Like when Tropical Freeze came out, people were annoyed that it was $60, right? Because the Wii U version launched at $50 and it was on sale for like $20 with the selects or whatever it was, the greatest hits Nintendo Wii thing. And putting it out for $60 was a bit of a sticking point. But at least you can argue like they added funky mode. They added a whole new character you can play the game with. They added a new item for him as well. There was something new to be said about the game. A whole new play style. Play with Funky Kong. He's kind of like the easy mode of the game, quote unquote. So it's like, yeah, I get their thinking like, oh, we added this whole new thing to the game. It's definitely worth $60. I don't know their thinking behind Donkey Kong Country Returns. This has less done to it than Metroid Prime Remastered, which was $40 when it released. The pricing just doesn't make any sense to me. And, I've been poo-pooed on for buying this. But in general, I'm a Donkey Kong fan. I love Donkey Kong. If I see Donkey Kong, I will buy. And this was one of those situations where it's like, I love Donkey Kong Country Returns. I'll pay $60 to get a Switch version of that. And I did. And you don't have to yourself. I would definitely say after playing through it, it's a great game. If you have the Wii or the 3DS version, just play those versions. It's literally the same thing, except you don't have the ability to switch between a 3-life system or a 1-hit-and-you-die system, right? But other than that, it's the same. Like the graphic upgrade is not like so phenomenal that I'm blown out of my seat. I'm not flying back like getting shot with a shotgun in The Mummy. It's just one of those things where it's like it's a bare bones HD version of the game. They did some things to it, but not enough to justify $60. So wait for a sale on this one. I'm sure it will go on sale along with Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. It'll probably be dropped down to like $40 at least in the next in the next couple of months here. Nintendo games are notorious for keeping their price tag though, so I would say $40 would be a reasonable jump on it type cost, because it's not really going to go down below that, and if anything, the price is just going to go up. But we'll see. I'm judging this based off of Luigi's Mansion 2 still being a very expensive game for what it is. It's probably because it didn't sell too well, and there's probably a lot of people who bought a bunch of copies and they're just kind of hoarding them. It's hard to say. The same thing might happen with Donkey Kong Country Returns. It's hard to say, but I would wait for a sale on this one. Maybe like a 2-for-1 deal. This is your one or something like that. It's just one of those things where it's like, I really like the game. I like the game itself, but I don't like the HD remake or the HD remaster, whatever you want to call it, because it doesn't really do anything. At least Tropical Freeze did something, but Donkey Kong Country Returns just kind of got the bare minimum slapped together, and that was it. So I still give it a 4 because the game is still good, and also it's the same game. It's the same game. And I know a lot of people are factoring in like the price tag and how they didn't do anything with this re-release. I get it. I'm not going to do that because the game itself is still 4 out of 5 worthy. It's just there's some additional things here that just are annoying. So there you go. Use that information as you will. And the last thing to talk about this week is Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. I'm on Chapter 2 right now, so I'm not very far at all. I just felt like I needed to talk about it a little bit, though, because I got some things to get off my chest. This is the first Ninja Gaiden game that I'm really diving into. I do plan on getting as far as I can. If it does get too difficult, maybe I'll chicken out. I don't know. But the main thing is that a lot of people are, they read that like, oh, it's the predecessor to the Souls-like genre. It's hardcore, it's intense, it's very difficult, and people are turned off by that. But the problem is that it's really only difficult if you just kind of spam buttons, which is kind of how the game works a little bit, where you just kind of spam X a bunch of times and you press Y to do like a heavy attack and kill the enemy. But I think that a lot of the difficulty just comes down to you're not paying attention to what the enemy is doing, or you're just spamming the X button as fast as you can because you're trying to, kill a group of enemies. But because the enemies block, or because they're able to attack you through your from behind or something like that, you get your little spamming technique doesn't work anymore because now you're getting hit. You're just getting hit constantly and you die, right? That's the thing you need to learn early on, is like just do like basic combos, XXX, XXY, just kind of like get into a groove of doing that instead of like just spamming X like 5-10 times in a row. Because if you do that, like, sure, it works on most, in some occasions where it's like, okay, I press X 4 times and I cut off this guy's leg and now he's on the ground bleeding. I can do a finishing move on him. But there are times where it's like a group of enemies, they're attacking you at the same time. It's best to just kind of like block and dodge rather than spam your buttons, because that's going to lead to your downfall. It is on Xbox Game Pass, so you don't have to actually pay any money any extra money to at least try it out. And here's what I say: if you play the first chapter and you're like, this is too difficult, or I don't like this, or whatever, drop it. Just drop it, because the game that is essentially the game. Is that first chapter is essentially the rest of the experience, except it gets progressively more difficult. So if you don't like that first chapter, then boom, all right, at least you tried. But I would say that there's a lot to like about this Ninja Gaiden series, and they kind of show you their hand at the very beginning, where it's like, here is this over-the-top hack and slash action. You are slicing off this legs, you're slicing off limbs, like arms, you're slicing off heads, you're cutting torsos in half sometimes, you're doing like these crazy like finishing moves on enemies who are injured. You have like these bosses show up that are pretty frightening. They're really crazy design. It's almost like horror-esque. And you take them out, and it's like a really cool like finishing sequence there too. It's got a decent story to it so far. It's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is like really cool, and I would hope that more people at least try it out, just because this is it's in general, this is actually a pretty unique series of games. It's how many other Neo Tokyo ninja hack and slash games do we have? I don't think there's that many out there that are in the same genre as this, and if there is one out there, it's probably like a cheap knockoff, of the series. But I was just like really enthralled with the first like hour of the game. I was like, wow, this is really tight. This is really good. And even though I died once, it's not like too terrible to die, because you do get those like bonfire type things that heal you, and you're able to save. You do get them pretty frequently, at least in the first chapter, I guess. There was a section where I felt like it was a bit too long since I had seen one of those things, but that's just kind of like part of the intensity of the game, and like making sure that you don't like get relaxed, like, oh, I'm just hacking my way through this. They still want to keep you on your toes. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it, because I haven't really gotten too far into Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. But I will say that it has immediately kind of grabbed a hold of me. It's like immediately been like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And I know this is a remake of the old game, but it still feels kind of fresh. It feels fresh. It feels good. The graphics definitely got a nice improvement to it. Lighting effects and all that stuff. It really does feel a lot better, or at least look a lot better. I didn't mean feel. I meant look a lot better, because I haven't played the game before. How do I know how the old one feels? But yeah, like I said, it's on Xbox Game Pass. Maybe check it out there if you want to. I'm having a good time with it, and I know that the experience will get more difficult as you go on. There is a new difficulty mode though, which is like once you die, the game gets like progressively easier, I think. So like the more deaths you have, the more easier the game gets. So I guess you could try out that if you're like really afraid of the game's difficulty. I'm just playing on the normal mode right now, which seems to be a pretty fair challenge. But choose what suits you. Choose what suits you. I don't know if they're going to be remastering any more of the Ninja Gaiden games. They did release that Ninja Gaiden collection like last year, which does include the second game. Unfortunately, you don't get a free upgrade for that game if you bought that version, but what are you going to do? Yeah, I mean, right now I'm giving it like a thumbs up. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And just note that I haven't really played much of the game yet, but I played enough to feel like, yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to try this out, maybe go a couple more chapters, see how I'm feeling after that. So, there you go. Okay, let's move on to what's in the news. Okay, the new game coming from the same developer as Celeste was canceled recently, called Earthblade. This was shown off at the Game Awards in 2022, and it looked very good. What they had set up here looked very good. It kind of had that Celeste art style to it, but it was more of like a 2D, kind of like hack and slash type game. And it was a very beautiful looking one, of pixel art and all, pixel art graphics and all that stuff. Looked very good. They were planning to release it in 2024. Obviously, that did not happen. Extremely okay games is not okay anymore. But essentially what happened is one of the three developers left the studio. His name was Pedro. He was a founding member of the studio, and he decided to leave the development of the game. And the two other people who were left at the studio decided to try and trudge on. I'm guessing this happened like in 2024, right? So they decided to try and keep going with the game, but it was just too much work. I feel like, well, also I will say, like, because I was about to say, like, I feel like they could have hired someone else on to help out with the workload. But in the paragraph of text that they put out there for the reason why it was ending, they also weren't like fully into the game, I guess. Like, the more they worked on it, the more they were kind of having some disdain for it. And if that starts happening, then if you're not putting passion into it when it releases, like, people are going to feel that. People are going to see that the passion kind of started to wane out. So the project definitely had a lot going for it. And I understand why they feel the need to cancel it and maybe start on something different. Maybe they'll come back to it after a couple years. Maybe they'll put out a different game and come back to it, and we'll see it again. Maybe a re-reveal or something like that. Who knows? But as of right now, Earthblade has been canceled. Unfortunately, very promising looking 2D pixel art game, and yeah, it's just unfortunate that it has been canceled. So, kind of good, kind of bad news. The founder of Insomniac Games, named Ted Price, is assigned to leave the studio. He's actually retiring. So, it's like I said, it's kind of good news. It's also kind of bad news, right? This is the guy who spearheaded the push for Spyro the Dragon, Ratchet and Clank, Resistance, all those franchises. He's been working with the developers since 1994, which originally was Extreme Software, but then they changed to Insomniac Games. Right now he is retiring from Insomniac Games, and Chad, Jen, and Ryan are all going to pick up the mantle and, I guess, co-lead Insomniac Games for right now. Each of the people I just mentioned have been with the company for quite some time. Chad has been with it since the PS2 era. He's helped to ship 12 games in his career. As for the other two, they both joined the team in 1998 and served various positions in the studio. So I'm sure that they'll put another person at the head of Insomniac Games. Hey, happy retirement to Ted Price. Good luck to him. Well, I mean, it's retiring. He's probably gonna have a nice, relaxing retirement. I'm sure he's made his money. I mean, he made some of the best games or franchises ever created, like Spyro and Ratchet and Clank were huge. And I mean, Ratchet and Clank is still huge. It's still a huge franchise. Resistance had 3 games or 4 games if you count the PSP one, and kind of died out. Ratchet and Clank, definitely a staple of like the PS2 era, and then it has, kind of started to dwindle out during the PS3 era. Like, it started strong, and then there was just too many games, and it's kind of revitalized itself in the PS4 and PS5 era. And then Spyro the Dragon, just a a staple series from the PS1. It had that Reignited trilogy to kind of bring it back into the limelight. Not much has been done with it, but Spyro the Dragon definitely started off on the right foot. 3 very good games, and then a 4th one that was also pretty good. And then the series also kind of like started to tank a little bit, but I don't think that's Insomniac's fault by any means. Yeah, there you go. Ted Price retiring. Good luck to you. And finally, for the news today, Phil Spencer has reiterated that he would like to ship more games on PlayStation and Nintendo. So Phil Spencer, in a interview on Gamertag Radio, he said, "I want everybody to be able to play on Xbox, and it does mean more of our games shipping on more platforms, not just PlayStation. We love the work that we do with Nintendo. We love what we have done with Valve on Steam, and that's going to continue, and we'll continue for more of it. The thing I've learned and continue to learn when I'm listening to creators is every creator out there wants to build a game that can find as many players as they want. We're not going to put up walls around where people can engage with the great games our studios are building." So this kind of tells you that, like, you know, Indiana Jones and Grounded and whatever else are not the end of the Xbox expansion to other places. We already know that Doom: The Dark Ages is coming to PlayStation. We already know that Ninja Gaiden 4 will most likely be coming to PlayStation. And many other games are probably going to be released either digital or physical on the system on PlayStation and Nintendo's next console as well. Who called this? Who called this? Who called this? Oh yeah, me. Back when, what was the first game that come to PlayStation? Hi-Fi Rush or something like that? When the first group of games came over the PlayStation, and everyone was like, "Oh, they're just doing this." You know, Phil Spencer was like, "No, we're gonna, Xbox games will be able to play on Xbox, and we're not going full third-party support here. You know, we're gonna still have a console. We're gonna still have exclusive games." I told y'all that was bullshit, and that they were going to go full-fledged into the multi-platform market. And what's happened since then? Nintendo Switch releases, PlayStation releases, Steam releases of games, everything under the sun that you can think of. They started releasing, and now they have this Xbox everything's an Xbox campaign, which is a good campaign, as I've already mentioned. But yes, they have gone multi-platform, and I think this is the future for Xbox. I mean, even though they say that they're still working on hardware, it's hard to like really be like, "Oh, our new hardware, huh?" It's hard to really sell that, because not only is Xbox Game Pass on PC like the preferred way for most people to play Xbox Game Pass and Xbox games, but the Xbox Series S and X really didn't sell well enough to even like justify, I don't know, like putting out like an updated version of the Series X. Like, we have not seen an updated version of the Series X, probably because the Series X didn't really sell that well, or maybe they're just confident in their hardware. It's hard to say. It's one of those things where it's like Xbox is definitely getting out of the exclusivity market. They really have never been 100% in there anyway. Like, even in the Xbox 360 era, sure, there was like your Gears of Wars and your Halos and stuff like that, but it never really felt like the Xbox was an exclusive platform, because there was always something on the Xbox that was also on the PlayStation, or vice versa. They really did try during the Xbox One era, and that didn't really work out too well. The PlayStation beat them pretty handily in both hardware and in sales. It's one of those things that's like, yep, could have, everyone should have seen this coming. I'm sure there were other people talking about it, but I know for a fact that when that was first announced, when they were first bringing over games to PlayStation, I told y'all that it wasn't going to stop there, and here we are. It feels good to be right once in a while. I know this wasn't like a too difficult one to predict, but I felt like I really was the only one talking about it for quite some time before they started releasing more games like Indiana Jones and stuff on multiple platforms. So there you go. All right, let's move on to what's coming soon. Okay, first on the list, Phantom Blade Zero had a new trailer, and this one was a Year of the Snake gameplay trailer where they're going up against this boss battle with like these puppeteers or whatever they are, and essentially what happens is you fight like a bunch of them, and then they all kind of, the second phase they all like start puppeteering like a giant version of one of them. And the game is looking very good. Like, yes, it's a hack and slash kind of game. I mean, I mean, this might be one of those games that's very much inspired by Ninja Gaiden, but it definitely does have its Souls-like characteristics as well in there. Don't worry about that if you're a Souls fan. But it is very hack and slashy. It doesn't seem like it's going to be too difficult to pick it up and kind of learn how to play, but I think mastering the combat will be the hard part. You know, kind of getting your parries down, your blocking down, and stuff like that, which is like a usual for most Souls-like games anyway. But Phantom Blade Zero, this new trailer on PlayStation's YouTube channel and others as well, looked very good. The main thing that I want to say is this, you know, it's a very like for the first half of the boss fight, it's like a traditional like I don't know if it's like Japanese or Chinese instrument playing, and then the transition to phase 2 happens, and they pull out like heavy metal guitars and stuff like that. Immediately, I was like swooning. I was like, oh god. I think this has definitely sold the game for me now. I mean, I wanted to buy the game from the get-go anyway because it's always looked pretty cool. And once they showed off actual like full-blown gameplay of them you know, playing the game, I was really sold because the first trailer I was like, oh, it looks really good, but is this real gameplay? And yes, they showed off more of it and it was like, yeah, that was actual real gameplay, so that's really cool. But yeah, I mean, watch the trailer, see how it goes. It looks really good. Like the graphics look great, the soundtrack is amazing, and the combat looks really, really fun, really flowing. So I'm very interested in checking this out. It's still planned to come out sometime in 2025. I'm pretty sure they did not give a release date for the game yet, but it is to be announced. I'm guessing it's going to come sometime in 2025, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I don't want them to rush anything, even though it looks really good. But 2025 would be a nice zone to release this one in. We'll see. Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii on Sega's YouTube channel. They released a couple of YouTube videos showing off the game. I believe they had like a whole like 2-hour presentation for the game as well, which I did not get around to watching, of course. But I did see these snippet trailers, and the one that I wanted to talk about was the Naval Combat Overview trailer. They showed off everything you can do with your pirate ship, and of course there obviously are going to be things that they don't show off, but they showed off the pirate ship, all the customization, all the different weapons you can put on there, from cannons to flamethrowers to laser guns. They also showed off how you can go into the open world and find new crewmates for your ship. You need about 20 crewmates in order to run your ship properly. And you can kind of like do things with them, like pirate things with them, like go out drinking and have fun and stuff like that to improve your relationship with them and improve their levels. And then the naval combat itself is very much inspired by Assassin's Creed Black Flag. This is more inspired by Assassin's Creed Black Flag than Skull and Bones, which was essentially the spiritual success, supposed to be the spiritual successor to that game. So essentially, you have a right and left cannon, and then you have a forward-facing like something or another. You also have a puckle gun type situation where you can stop steering the ship and get onto the puckle gun, and you can also jump to the crow's nest on the ship and fire a bazooka. And they described the bazooka as, oh, it's just a modern day blunderbuss, right? Which I thought was kind of funny. So yeah, I mean, they showed off all these mechanics, and then one of the final things that they talked about was the fact that you can ram into an enemy ship and disable them, and then board the ship and actually fight the crew on their ship, which is something that Skull and Bones did not have, which is something that every pirate game should have, because that is such a staple part of pirates is boarding a ship and taking out their captain and stealing all their stuff. So it looks like the game is going to be widely set in this open world, like sea area. It looks like they're going to have a pretty consistent group of enemies with you at all times, so it doesn't get too boring, obviously. But obviously, I think there's going to be ports that you stop in at. I mean, obviously, if this is based on Hawaii, I'm sure that you'll be sticking around, in the Pacific around the Hawaiian Islands. Maybe there'll be a couple other places that you go to. But I'm finding this to be a very interesting and just everything I kind of wanted Skull and Bones to be. It seems like this game is going to be. Obviously, it's a bit off the wall, as most Yakuza and Like a Dragon games are. So if you're turned off by like the not so historically accurate like flamethrowers or laser guns being put onto your pirate ship, or having a giant megalodon come out and attack the ship, then obviously it's not that kind of game, and maybe it's not for you. But for me personally, this looks awesome. It's why I pre-ordered it like a couple weeks ago when they did their first reveal or a different trailer that kind of sold me on the game that I talked about. This trailer definitely sold me on the game even more so, which it's hard to do. I'm very excited to try this out, and hopefully, I am hoping that it's not like. I hope it gets into it fast. That's what I'm trying to say. The other Yakuza games and Like a Dragon games, they kind of really ease you into it. Like, they really slowly ease you into it. One of the reasons why I didn't really get too far in Infinite Wealth last year was because that the beginning of the game is just so. It's just a long and tedious kind of experience for like that first couple hours where it's not like showing you its hand. It's not like giving you what the game has shown off in the trailers. And I'm hoping that the Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, I hope that this game just kind of like starts off running and gets you to the stuff that you want to see quick. That being said, knowing that there is such cool things in the game is probably going to in turn make me fight through any slower aspects of the game. But that's my only concern. That's my only concern. So they also revealed that there's over 100 different side characters to choose from for your crew. So lots of customization there as well. Speaking of pirates, Captain Blood. This is a game that was supposed to release all the way back in the PS2 era, and it was pushed back all the way until now. If you don't know what Captain Blood is, this is a pirate-themed action game set on the Spanish Main in the 17th century, where you'll step into the boots of a fearsome pirate on the quest for gold and glory. Expect wild adventures with cannon firing, pistol shooting, swashbuckling sword fights, and plenty of pirate shenanigans. This action-packed hack and slash features fierce hand-to-hand combat, hordes of enemies, and classic fighting system with a flashy combo system and epic finishers. The gameplay itself, which you can see on SNEG's YouTube channel, it looks like a PS2 game. Not a polished PS2 game, I will say. So like the graphics, they look like they look like that era of graphics, but it's obviously polished and it looks a little bit better than what you expect. This is coming out May 6th. I am very interested in this. It's not every day that you get like a PS2 era inspired game. I mean, this one was obviously being worked on in the PS2 era, so that's probably the reason why, but you don't see too many games coming out nowadays that have the PS2 aesthetic to it that aren't just like a remaster of like a PS2 game, right? But it looks really good. I mean, they didn't really show off too much about it, but I think that it's going to be a really cool game. I'm thinking it's going to kind of be like that Captain Jack Sparrow game that came out on the PS2 era. I forget what that one was called, but it was like another hack and slash game. Hopefully it'll be better than that because that game was like decent, but not like great. It's coming to everything, though. Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, Steam, GOG, Epic, Apple, Macintosh. So there you go. Once again, that's coming May 6th, and I'm excited. I think I'm gonna check this out. All right, after a bunch of delays, Assassin's Creed Shadows, I think it's officially going to be releasing on the 20th of March for sure. The developers came out, they put out a new trailer for the story, and then they also talked about why the game was pushed back. And they're saying that it's because they want to refine the parkour system, which I guess it's fine that they said that. I just don't believe it. I don't believe that. I do feel like there's other things that they need to fix in the game as well. As I've already mentioned a couple times, people have brought up inaccurate banners, inaccurate buildings, anachronistic buildings and banners, stuff like that they probably also worked on in the background. But the parkour system, they wanted to flesh it out, apparently, make it more fluid like the old games, and give Naowei a more robust parkour system to make her feel a lot different from, what's the other guy's name? I don't remember the other guy's name right now. Nobu? Something like that? Yasuke. My apologies. So the new trailer was a story trailer put out on Ubisoft's YouTube channel. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, wow, that story is so fresh. It's so good. I think that, the story itself is something that we've kind of already treaded over in other games. But I think that in general, I think it's going to be fine.
So the Naoe and Yasuke kind of come together because of this war in late feudal Japan's era. This game is set in the Iga province in 1579, and this is what historics call the final days of feudal Japan. So I'm guessing that we're going to be working together with these two characters, and we're going to be bringing together the country to form a unified Japan. So yeah, it doesn't look bad by any means. I think the game looks decent enough. I think that they have improved some of those facial animations that I was talking about before. The combat with Yasuke looks like it's going to be brutal and I don't know. Brutal is the word I'm looking for. And the stuff with Naoe is obviously more stealth focused, which does look good as well. So they also clarified that Yasuke he's not being called a samurai officially. He is a samurai retainer, which usually a samurai retainer would be like a slave or something like that who carried around like the samurai's equipment and stuff like that. But essentially, they said that he's an African slave who was transported to Japan by the Portuguese, and he is under the service of Nobunaga. And he is trained in the samurai arts by Nobunaga, which I believe is historically, at least from what we know, historically accurate. I guess something's probably going to happen where he has to take up the mantle of a samurai while not actually being a samurai. So that's kind of where like a part of the conflict will come from. But anyway, if you want to check out that trailer, it's on Ubisoft's YouTube channel. If you want to check that out, the graphics look decently good, but obviously a lot of this is cutscene, so it's like okay. We'll see what it actually looks like. But I'm interested in the game. I've had it pre-ordered for quite some time, which I know a lot of people poo-poo. Oh, you pre-ordered the game, huh? Yes, I did. I pre-ordered the game because I'm an Assassin's Creed fan, no matter what. At this point, I still really like the basics of the games, and we'll see how the story is. They definitely tried a lot more with this one. I'm hoping that it's not going to be as large as Valhalla or Origins or whatever, but it definitely seems like they put a lot more effort into the story on this one than they have for the past couple of games. So we'll see what happens. All right, Black Ops 6 is bringing Season 2, which is going to bring back some classic maps, some weapons, and more. So the new maps coming to the game are Bounty, Dealership, and Lifeline. Sorry, this picture is a little bit crunched. And then the new maps that are coming in season. One of them is called Bullet, and the other one is called Grind. They also are bringing in a new mode called Overdrive, and Gun Game is coming back. Slipstream is a new perk that will be coming to the game, probably a faster running perk. A new score streak called the War Machine will be available. Some new ranked play content and camos will be available. Looks like they're based off of Jaguars. Couples Dance Off, which is a 2v2. I'm sorry, a 1v1, and there's also a third wheel gunfight, which is a 2v2. So they're bringing that stuff back from Modern Warfare. A new perk called Hunter's Instinct, and a new wild card called Fly Swatter, which might give you more ammo in your rocket launchers. The new Zombies map is called The Tomb. There will be a Staff of Ice in there, which is the new wonder weapon. There will be a new Death Perception perk. The War Machine will be available as a support weapon. There will be new augments, Gobblegum, and new rewards, along with the directed mode coming later in the season. Warzone. Changes to weapons, movement, default perks, and more. New reactive armor perk and a new low profile perk. Also, new ranked rewards for Warzone as well. New weapons and operators coming to the game. The PPSH-41 is a new gun coming to the game. New, quote-unquote. Look, a lot of people are kind of on the fence about this. It's a staple for Black Ops to have the PPSH. I believe the PPSH was in Black Ops 4 or 3, if I remember correctly, as a bonus gun you could get for DLC or something like that. But, the PPSH has been around for quite a couple of the Black Ops games. The Cypher 91 is an assault rifle. The Fang 82 is a new LMG, and the TR2 is a new marksman rifle, which is pretty cool. Also, we're going to be in the crossbow attachment, a full auto mod for the marksman rifles, a binary trigger mod for all weapons, and a belt-fed new attachment for LMGs. The new operators you can get are Nocturne and Vortex, who kind of look like samurais or Ronin, whatever you want to say. Also, there will be a new bundle called the Tracer Pack, which is inspired by Terminator, so an Arnold Schwarzenegger skin and a Terminator skin. Also, there will be a Terminator event, along with a Shadow Hunt event, and more. So all in all, I think this is a good slew of content for it. I am interested in playing with the PPSH in the game. I haven't really been playing a lot of Black Ops. I just have other things that I want to play. It's not like I won't go back to the game at all. I'll probably go back to it when Season 2 kicks off. Yeah, I mean, it's just I have other things that I want to play right now, which is why I haven't been playing Black Ops that much. But this is set to launch on January 28th. And if you have bought the other season pass, you do earn enough coins. Usually you earn enough coins to buy the next season pass. So if you saved your coins, you can probably buy the next season pass almost for free, right? If not, if you spent your coins on other things, well, then you have to pay some money. But there you go. Pretty cool. Sniper Elite Resistance is coming out soon. You can pre-order it right now if you so desire. Yes, I had some thoughts to say last week about the pre-order bonuses, one of them being a Car 98. I was not too happy about that. But after watching the gameplay, this gameplay trailer, 20 minutes of gameplay that was not edited, look, I mean, I'm sold on the game, obviously. If you know what Sniper Elite is, then you know what this game is going to be like. X-ray kills, stealth sections, masking your sniper rifle shots and stuff like that. So it's not like it's going to be that different from any other Sniper Elite game. But it is different in the fact that you aren't using Carl Fairbairn, you're using a guy named Harry something or another. And he is like a resistance member who is in with the French to try and take out some strategic targets, including in this gameplay trailer, they're showing a dam that you need to take out the flak cannons on so that the bombers can come in and bomb the dam. So, the gameplay looks good. The parkour looks good. It is a lot of the same, though, which is not really concerning per se, but it's just one of those things where it's like, maybe we could change things up a bit. I think a lot of people are also getting kind of bored with the World War II setting. Like, maybe we could get like a World War I setting in the future, or maybe a modern day setting as well. I know there's other games that already tackle at least the modern day setting, like Ghost Warrior. But it's one of those things where it's like maybe next time we could maybe change it up a little bit. Maybe give us Vietnam. Maybe give us World War I. Maybe give us like something else that's in like the same, almost like the same period, right? But different enough to make it a bit more fresh. Because I mean, this has been 4/5/6 games now, including this one and the VR game that have been set in World War II. Which isn't a bad thing, obviously. I love the World War II setting, but it is another thing that it kind of gets a bit monotonous doing the same thing for all these new games. They've obviously changed locations a bunch. So it started off in like Berlin, and then you were in the African desert in the third one, and the fourth one you were in Italy, right? Or was that the fifth one? Well, there was one where you were in Italy, and this one you're in France. Which in the last game you were also in France too, but it was like the D-Day version of France, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we're kind of like keeping it kind of close knit here. It's almost like we're reusing things at some points, but I still really enjoy the gameplay for these Sniper Elite games. It's not bad by any means, but I do feel like yes, the series could use maybe a bit of like a. Maybe we could zhuzh it up a bit. Maybe we could, maybe instead of, we could go to like the Russian offensive, or in any other case, we could go to a different time period. I think World War II would be pretty cool because that was like, not really the golden age of it was the golden age of rifling. Let's say, a lot of bolt action rifles got their names there. So, I think that would be kind of cool, especially because, sniping and stuff like that. So it's all about that. So, and it might be kind of cool to like snipe strategic targets in No Man's Land or something like Dead Man's Land or whatever. So I don't know. Just thoughts, just thoughts. But the Resistance gameplay was really good. If you want to check that out, it's on Rebellion's YouTube channel. Right, meow. I know that there's a couple of people who really like the Fuga Melodies of Steel series, and the third game is coming soon on May 29th. So if you don't know what Fuga Melodies of Steel is, it's like a turn-based tactical RPG where you play as a crew of anthropomorphic characters who run a powerful tank and either take out the enemies that get in your way. There's an upgraded battle system in this one and enhanced immersion between story and combat sequences. There will also be a conclusion for the series, so maybe this is the last Fuga game in this, and maybe this is ending the trilogy here. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I've never really played these games, so I'm not like really well versed in it. But if you want to see the reveal trailer or teaser trailer, it's on CyberConnect 2 official channel YouTube channel. If you want to check that out, they didn't show any gameplay. They just kind of showed the some of the hand drawn cutscenes, which did look good. But if you know the series, you know what it's about, and if you're excited about this, you probably enjoyed the other ones too. All right, Aspyr is putting out a new prequel pack for the various consoles that the Star Wars games are on. They obviously have been focusing a lot on these prequel games. Kind of started out with Republic Commando coming back, and then Star Wars Racer. Eventually, we got Star Wars Bounty Hunter, and now officially we have Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles joining this pack. So before, there was a Republic Commando and Star Wars Racer dual pack. And now they've kind of just expanded it. This is not a physical version of any of the games. It's just a digital version. You can purchase all 4 of these games for one price. My problem is that do we really need this? Do we really need a 4-pack for these games? I mean, maybe someone would be interested in 3 out of the 4 of them. Who knows? The real reason why I'm talking about this is that Jedi Power Battles sucks. They took this PS1 game that was already very much criticized for its difficulty and for its glitchiness and stuff like that, and they ported it onto the PS5, and sure, they updated some things and whatever, but it's still very glitchy and it still sucks to play. So I mean, Aspyr just kind of doing its thing here, just kind of shitting out a remaster of a game that no one asked for. So it's just one of those things where it's like, what other IPs can we get our grummy hands on so we can ruin the game? But the thing is too, there is some faith in Aspyr because Republic Commando, the remaster of that was good. Star Wars Racer, Bounty Hunter, all good remasters. But Aspyr has also had some really, really bad remasters as well. Most recently, the Battlefront Classic Collection, which just was such a disappointment. And now this Jedi Powers Battle, which, sure, they added in a couple of new characters and whatever. But the fact of the matter remains that the base game itself kind of sucked. And this remaster is not any better. So, there you go. If you want the prequel pack, you can get all 4 of these games for one low price of $60, I think it is. All right, Nintendo has expanded its online Switch library, its SNES library, I should say, with 3 more titles. Fatal Fury 2, which is obviously it's a fighting game. Ninja Boy, which is it's kind of like it almost reminds me of that Gargoyles game we played last year, where you go through an open world and you get some random encounters, and then it turns into a third person or a 2D action game for a little bit. And then there's a new game that is, for the first time, being released in America, which is called Sute Hakurun, which is a puzzle game where you play as some sort of bird that can suck up paint, and you use the various different colors of paint to move blocks. Depending on what color paint they are, they move a different way. So if it's blue, it moves left and right. If it's red, it moves up and down. If it's yellow, I think it moves maybe diagonal. I'm not sure. It kind of reminded me of an early Mario vs. Donkey Kong type system, perhaps. But apparently there's 20 or maybe even more levels than that. Maybe there's 50 levels in that game. So kind of cool that we're getting this game for the first time in America, which is nice. It's originally released on the Super Famicom as an add-on to a game called Stellaview. Not sure what that is, or if I'm even saying that correctly. So yeah, if you want to check those out, they are on the SNES version of the Nintendo Switch Online service. And here are some games that are available on Xbox Game Pass right now. Starting on January 22nd, which has already passed, you can play Flock on Xbox Game Pass Standard, Gigantic Rampage Edition on console, cloud, and PC. Kanitsi Gami Path of the Goddess is now available on Xbox Game Pass Standard, along with Magical Delicacy. Starbound is available on console and cloud. Tachia is available on Game Pass Standard. And The Case of the Golden Idol is also available on Xbox Game Pass Standard. Coming out on January 28th, you can play Eternal Strands, Orcs Must Die Death Trap, and Shady Part of Me. On January 30th, Sniper Elite Resistance will be available. On January 31st, Citizen Sleeper 2, Star Wars Vector, and then on February 4th, you can play Far Cry New Dawn. A very good selection of games here, especially with Orcs Must Die. I know Eternal Strands has been getting a lot of hype recently. Sniper Elite, and then Far Cry New Dawn is a pretty fun game. I know there's a lot of criticism about that one, but it's also very fun. So yeah, if you want to check out any of those games, they will be available soon and or right now on Xbox Game Pass. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fair 64. If you have, make sure you leave a like and or rate it on Spotify, 1 to 5 stars. I would very much appreciate that. Let's go ahead and do the song of the week. If you know the song's name and the game that it came from, let me know in the comments below or on the Discord channel, the Fair 64 section, and I will give you a super reaction, and you'll get the admiration of your peers. If you do it on YouTube, I'll give you a heart and a congratulations in the comments. Let's listen to today's song right now. If you know the name of the song and the game that it came from, let me know in either the comments below or on my Discord, link down below. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm Yemmy the Ferret. I stream on Twitch on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Right now, we are switching out between Red Dead Redemption 2 and Pokemon Sword. So 2 very different games, but 2 very good games so far. If you want to check that out. Also, I have a VODs channel, so you can catch up with all the latest, Yemmy the Ferret VODs. Right now, I'm going through the last year's October games, so those will all be up soon. Also, I run another podcast called Film Freaks with a Z, where we talk about movies. The latest episode is about X-Men, and Demonic Lucy came on to talk about that with us. The next episode will be in 2 weeks, but as of right now, you can listen to the X-Men episode if you're so excited. All right, folks, thank you so much once again. I am Yemmy the Ferret, and I am out of here. Have a good rest of your week. I'll talk at you next time. Bye-bye.
The Ferret 64 podcast is owned and edited by Yemmy the Ferret. Small sound clips used throughout the podcast were made by Yemmy the Ferret. The song in the intro and outro is Nightshade by Adhesive Wombat. The Ferret 64 logo was made by Player2P2. News sources include PushSquare.com, NintendoLife.com, and PureXbox.com. All opinions, video game related, are my own. Thank you for listening.